Hey Las Vegas, thanks for joining us back here on Realty Check, your local Las Vegas real estate news show. I'm back and I'm your host, Trish Williams.
And I'm your co-host, Tiana Carroll. Thanks for joining us again this week. And this week we have a very interesting show that is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get into it. We have our guest, Mr. Anthony Wright. He is a lawyer here in town and works a lot with trust.
And he's with the Wright Law Offices here in Las Vegas, local, born and raised. Anthony, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, that's all true. So I've been here, my DNA has probably been in Nevada since 1870s.
There you go.
And my son is a seventh generation Nevadan, so.
Wow, that's so amazing.
Yeah, and October is my favorite month of the year because the weather in Nevada, and especially in Las Vegas, is so beautiful. Go out and do things.
And interestingly enough, we always have you on the show in October around this season, so that's great. We're happy to have you back. You've been here before, talked to us. So
I think this is my third time.
Yeah, this is your third time, and always bring a wealth of knowledge. So we're interested to hear what you have to talk about today.
Yeah, I was really excited to see you on the calendar because I haven't been on the show with you yet.
Right.
And so I wanted to come on and actually hear what you had to say live and in person.
Well, normally when I'm on the show, I have some talking points, some areas that we plan to cover. Today, I think, is going to be totally extemporaneous.
It is.
I have a theme. I have an idea. I was developing on the way over here, actually, on what to talk about since it is the month of Halloween.
Okay.
And I have a story.
Wait. Before you get into your story, we always at the beginning of our show we
yes,
start with our numbers.
The numbers.
The
That's
numbers.
correct.
We do.
Are they horrible, scary numbers?
They're scary Halloween numbers.
Okay.
No, they're fine.
They are. These numbers, I feel like we have been reporting the same numbers now for 2 months,
It's
right?
It's the same numbers week after week within like 100, 150 on each side. Like this week, our single family inventory is 7,808.
It's high. No, it is high, but it is certainly hovering around the same numbers.
Yeah. We're just playing right under 8,000 every
How many
week.
realtors are there?
Just two, Trish and I. Yeah, we're the only ones in Vegas. If you need help, call us.
There's almost 20,000 in Las Vegas. Yeah.
Okay, so
lots of realtors out there to help you service your facilitate your deal.
I have
Just
a
look for a good one.
joke that I tell people that every other person you know is a realtor, but none of them are like me.
Well, those are facts.
There's 8,000 homes for sale for 20,000 realtors.
Correct.
Roughly.
Except for our sales numbers and we don't have our closed sales numbers to report this week. Those will be released next week. However, our closed sales are hovering around 3,000.
But each sale should have at least 2 realtors anyways, so.
True,
Right.
true. Yeah, but there's a rule in Vegas, and that rule is, we made the rule, right?
We play by our own rules.
We play by
We
our
do
own
whatever
rules.
we want.
Is 10% of the realtors in Vegas do 90% of the business.
And that's the reality, though. That's not really a rule.
It's not
That's
a rule,
like
it's a reality.
Yeah, and I think that's market standard everywhere, though.
Yeah.
Like in most markets. There's so many people who get into the business who don't practice. It's part-time. They might do 1-2 deals a year, get out within a few years. Then there are people who are in it for the grind.
Yeah.
Once you wake up after you get your license and realize it's not all brunches and
To some extent, I think that's true of lawyers too. There's a lot of lawyers that are licensed in Nevada but aren't practicing here.
Yeah.
They're retired, they practice in some other state, but they maintain their license, or they just don't do much.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's a grind, and I think realtors and attorneys are very similar. Yeah. The news articles, there wasn't like really a lot of big news articles. I feel like the media is starting to finally move away from us because nothing major has happened. Right. We all know rates are rising. They're continuing to rise. Market's dropping. Sales are slowing down. We get it. We know that it's happening. However, we've been staying around the same numbers every week. Price reduction, $17.98 in the last week.
Yep.
Those numbers have been right under 2,000 every week consistently. So we're kind of at this stagnant point where things are steady. They're not great, but they're steady. Yet some news articles are calling this like saying that we had slight recovery. I wouldn't quite call this a recovery. We have a little bit of activity, and our inventory is not raising every week like it was before when this first started, but I would not necessarily call this a recovery.
I wouldn't call it a recovery either, but I think it's the media's way of saying stabilizing. They're
Right.
looking for something to sell, and that's just an easy way for them to say, like, oh, we're not crashing anymore, we're not in this free fall, we sort of leveled out, so we must be recovering. And so I think that's their version of recovery. And I think we're going to be within the next 3 to 6 months in some sort of version of recovery, meaning that we're not going to have like a flood of houses come on the market to change our stock. It's going to stay the same. And then people are going to get used to the new normal. And then, you know, sellers are going to finally wrap their head around that houses aren't selling in 5 days anymore. It could be 2, 3, 4 months before those houses move.
Right. And then buyers,
Buyers, do we have those in the market? Buyers, where are you at?
the interest rates it's a hard pill to swallow, but come on. We've seen 8s before, and
We've
it
seen
didn't
8s
stop
before.
home buying. We've seen 12s. We've seen 27% rates. It is there.
I wasn't. I was too young for that. Trish was there.
Yet.
I wasn't.
No,
I wasn't
born
around.
yet when that happened. Let's not fake these numbers here. But you're just going to have to understand that as, you know, it is what it is. We're going to have to deal with it. But we've been spoiled, so it's going to take a little bit for people to jump off the fence there.
Right. Right. And I'm just joking about buyers. I still have lots of buyers, and we're still out there, and we are getting those deals, and it's good. I mean, not only do we have buyers, but we're buyers. Both of us happen to be in contract right now.
We're buying homes.
Yep, we are.
So, Anthony, one of the some of the inventory that we see is probate. We see this all the time, probate homes that are on the market, and there's a lot behind that. So that's let's talk a little bit about that. You do some estate planning.
I do.
And how does this work?
All right, so probate is probably one of the things you want to avoid.
Most
Agreed.
definitely.
And as Trish, when we did the for sale by owner, she's like, I bought my house for sale by owner, but you don't do it. I'm the same thing. The house I'm in contract for right now is probate, but don't go do it because there's a lot of red hoops to jump through in red tape.
If you own a home and you care about your loved ones that are going to inherit from you, do an estate plan. They can be very simple. I do them for $1,000. It includes 4 or 5 documents that get filed or saved somewhere or given to your heirs. $1,000 for that, and you avoid your heirs having to spend thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands of dollars through a probate action. Anytime you have real estate or any property of value, you want to set up an estate plan.
Yeah, you want to protect it.
So this is, to put it, I guess, in kind of layman's terms, Anthony, is if you own a home, right, and that home is not put into a trust, if at the time that you pass away or you die, something happens to you, that home's going to have to go through probate because the trust is the instructions of what happens with that home.
Potentially. So if you have co-owners, if you have, for instance, a joint tenant with right of survivorship, then your joint tenant would take over, and it doesn't go to probate.
Okay.
But at some point, it will go to probate if there is no plan for a successor owner.
Okay.
Probate is simply a way to deal with a deceased person's property and to get creditors paid off and to get the heirs title to property.
Right.
So, you know, when you're talking about small items like dishes and, you know, things like that, your heirs can just come in and ransack the place and take off and nobody will be the wiser. But when you're dealing with high value assets that have paperwork attached like insurance or property that has titles, boats, cars, houses, and so forth, you definitely want to have a trust. Or at least a will. Wills get probated too, but you're telling everybody what you have and who gets it.
Right.
Whereas if you don't have any of that, your heirs are going to have to come look for what you have, try to find it, and then bring it to the probate court and say, we found this, we found that. This is how, according to the intestate succession statutes, it's supposed to be divided. We don't even know who all the creditors are, and a probate can last years.
Yeah, yeah. And in real estate sales in probate, I've had them, in an easy, clean probate, still a few months.
Yeah.
Still a few months. And what's interesting about that is the probate judge has say over what happens with the estate. If you have a trust, no one else has a say-so in what happens. It's per your instructions, correct?
Right. So while you're alive, if you have a living trust, you are the trustee. You're the settlor. You're the one that created the trust, but you're also the trustee. You're in charge of your estate. You're in charge of your assets. You can buy it, sell it, your real estate, your house. You can rent it. You can do whatever you want with it. But when you die, you've named a successor trustee who steps in. They record with the Clark County Recorder a certificate of incumbency that lets everybody know that they are now the successor trustee and they're in charge. Then they notify all the creditors. The creditors have 90 days from the time that the notices go out to write back and say, hey, we have a claim. If they don't do it within 90 days, they lose out on their claim. And then the trustee, the successor trustee, can follow the instructions and dispose of the assets and so forth. So there's still, about a 3-month turnaround, but you might in probate court only get your first court hearing in 3 months.
Wow.
And
yeah,
then
that's true.
from there it just keeps going. So yes, there's a little bit of work for the trustee to do, and they may still want to hire a lawyer to help them through that process, but it's easy. A lawyer shouldn't be charging a ton. It's definitely not litigation, going to court like you would with a probate. It could still end up in court if people are challenging the trust, saying that the person was not of sound mind when they created the trust or they were manipulated. So if a person's in a long-term care facility or something like that, or there's ideas that maybe they're not of sound mind, they should get a doctor's note that gets attached to the trust that says, no, they have the capacity to enter into a trust.
Oh, that's interesting. And another thing that I see in real estate often with a trust, and it's very sad because it's so simple, is there's people that have a trust. They had the trust put together. They had it built. The owners of the home have died. Their heirs now have the home. They have this trust. They have their folder. The real estate was never recorded into it.
Yeah, that's called funding the trust.
Yeah.
So if you don't fund the trust, that means, so when you create a trust, you're no longer the owner. You're in control of it. You have all the powers of ownership. You have what's called an alter ego. That's the trust. So if your name is Trish Williams, you could have, your trust would be named Trish Williams Living Trust, dated October 5th, 2022, if I was doing it for you today.
You could name it Snoopy, though, if you want.
You could name it anything you want. It doesn't really matter because some people think there's some anonymity attached. There isn't, because you're still listed as the trustee. So people can still find you as the owner of the trust who owns the property. So it's not really a protection against lawsuits or anything like that. It doesn't protect your identity so much. So you can name it pretty much anything you want. Most of my clients just name it after themselves and then put the date that it was created for simplicity. What was the question again? Sorry.
So, yeah, if it's not recorded into, because what I come across as a realtor is when we're going to sell a house, if it's not recorded into the trust, unfortunately, we have to go to probate.
Funding the trust. So
Funding the trust.
Now, at the end of the trust, there's a asset list. Okay, and my clients can fill out that asset list at any time. That's for the successor trustee to know, hey, here's bank accounts, safe deposit accounts, here's where all these things are, okay? And they can also list the real estate. But anything with title really should be transferred into the trust, okay? So that would be...
So vehicles?
Vehicles, you go through the DMV and you just fill out a simple DMV form that transfers it to your trust.
Oh, I never knew that.
Real estate, you just file a quitclaim deed. I do the quitclaim deed, or you record it, not file it. You record a quitclaim deed. That's one of the instruments I do for the $1,000. I record it even. I take it down and do all that for the client.
Yeah. That's a very important step, is recording into the trust.
And that's
Well,
why
it's
I
not
do it.
complete until you do it.
That's
so.
why I do it. Now, a lot of estate planning lawyers over the years don't do that step for the clients. They prepare the documents. They charge their clients thousands of dollars to prepare forms that, you know, the real value of me is not the forms. You can get the forms. The forms are actually in the statutes. You can copy and paste the forms. The value in me is I know what the forms say, and I can explain them, and I can help you make sure that you're fulfilling all the requirements under the law. So your family's protected, you're protected.
Years ago, before I knew that you did this, I went to somebody to create a trust, and then a couple years later, I went to someone else and I said, can you review this, because I don't know the legitimacy of this trust. And it was an estate planning attorney, and he had told me, this is a really nice folder. Like that.
It means nothing.
It was nothing more than a binder, because it was so incomplete that it wasn't going to serve me any purpose, or serve my heirs any purpose in the event that something had happened to us. So we had to redo everything.
Well, let me say this, okay? There are very, very wealthy people that need sophisticated trusts for tax purposes and so forth. You can have a trust that's 100 pages plus, where you're guaranteeing that your successor trustee is going to have to spend thousands of dollars on a lawyer to figure out what the hell the thing means. Trusts are supposed to be simple as necessary for your specific situation. Now, if you're one of those rich people, you don't come to me for a simple trust. You go to a tax lawyer that does estate planning. And you figure out how many trusts. You don't need just one little simple trust. You need multiple trusts. You need spendthrift trusts. You need maybe Social Security, Medicaid trusts. There's all different little types of trusts. Pet trusts, gun trusts. You can have multiple trusts, okay? My point is most people may have just a few small assets. They may have a house, a couple of cars, maybe more than one house. And they just want to make it easy for their heirs, who also don't have a lot of money, to acquire possession and legal rights to the property when they pass. The rich people, you don't really have to worry about that. Their heirs are going to be rich too. They can hire all the lawyers for that. So when you go to a lawyer, they have some of these lawyers have a one-size-fits-all trust, a 30, 40, 50-page trust that covers every potential contingency. And they charge you $5,000 to $10,000 for it, which is the same trust they gave to a multimillionaire maybe the day before. And they say, yeah, it's worth it because look, it has all these terms in it. My thought is, when you're doing a simple trust, it's only a few pages long, 6 pages maybe. It covers the very basic needs that you have. If you have a very simple estate, you only need a simple trust.
That makes sense.
But it's important to have it because you want to be protected. You want your family to be protected. And without it, it's just a mess. I mean, nobody wants to end up in probate, except for Tiana. Here I am.
Well, you're purchasing in probate.
I am purchasing in probate.
There's benefits for
Very
the buyer
excited.
in purchasing in probate in a market like this, because you can get it, probate sells in very aggressive markets where there's a lot of buyer activity and a lot of competition. They sell about the same price as everything else. But in markets like this, any type of distressed sell or probate sell or anything that is non-traditional will sell for a little bit better price. It does tend to have a little bit of benefits to purchasing that because you have you also have the things that come along with it, as far as the weight, the process, the time involved.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people, when they do real estate, especially in this city, we're so used to everything being so fast, instant. People are like, I have buyers who are making fun of me because a house has been on the market for 60 days. And I'm like, that's really not a long time in real estate. We're just so used to the flash in the pan real estate that we do in the Valley. But yeah, probate is definitely its own animal. And if you can avoid it, definitely get the trust, see a professional, protect yourself, protect your heirs, make sure that that's all you dot your I's and cross your T's.
Maybe you'd be interested in knowing why I got into this, because I'm a divorce lawyer. I've been a litigator. I've been practicing law for 18 years.
Absolutely.
So in 2020, in the pandemic, my good friend, at 78 years old, passed away in June.
I'm sorry. to hear
Jed
that.
Curtis.
I'm sorry.
I've known this fellow for about 12 years. He was over 6 feet tall, over 300 pounds, big guy. When I met him, he was probably about 400 pounds. Took up like 3 seats I met him in the Las Vegas Writers Group. I never thought he was long for the world. He actually lived a lot longer than I thought he would. But he was brilliant. He had like 160 IQ. He was, he had a doctor's degree in biochemistry from prestigious college in California, Berkeley. Anyway, he passed away, and his caretaker came to his home, and he didn't answer the door. So his caretaker called my brother, who had a key. My brother went over there, opened the door, and they go in and they find big old Jed laying there, stone cold dead in the room, in his entertainment room. And this fellow, though he was brilliant and had a sordid life and a colorful life and everything, probably didn't have a ton of assets. So when someone dies, the first thing that probably happens is 911 is called, right?
Yep.
And then the 911 dispatcher probably has the police go out, and then the police determine, hey, we need a coroner to come out and determine cause of death, determine if there's foul play or whatever. Coroner comes out, determines whether, time of death, potential cause of death, and so forth. Once the coroner is done, they remove the body and so forth. Then they call the public administrator's office. The public administrator goes in there, ransacks the house. They go in twos. The idea being is they're watching each other so nobody has sticky fingers. Okay?
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Although they're probably in different rooms and they have pockets anyway, so who knows, right? Things can disappear, small jewelry, whatever. Who knows? We don't know. We're trusting them because they're government employees and they get paid well. And maybe it's misplaced trust, and here's why. Now, this is a cautionary tale, a great tale for Halloween. It's a tale of death, murder.
Ooh.
It's an ongoing tale, and it's a nationwide tale that's ongoing right now as I speak, and I've been involved with it.
Right.
Because I know the public administrator, I know Jed Curtis who died, and I know another victim, a victim of murder, okay? All involved in this story. And here's why I became an estate planner, is because of Jed.
Okay.
It was the pandemic. His heirs are all around the world. His sons live in different parts of, one son's in Hawaii, another son is in Europe. They couldn't come here in the pandemic. And since I was his good friend, I was like his son, so to speak. I'm a little younger than his sons, but not much.
Yeah.
And so they said, hey, Anthony, can you help us? I said, not a problem. I know the public administrator. He's a good friend of mine. He's a lawyer. He used to do family law too. So I called up the public administrator, said, sure, we'll help you with this, of course. And so I gave the public administrator's office the benefit of the doubt. I knew the fella, and I trusted things were getting done right. Okay. It took 1.5 years just to get one simple form done correctly.
Wow.
Finally, only a few months ago did I finally get to pretty much close the estate with the public administrator's office. And only in recent months did I find out why this was the case. I thought, hey, they're overly burdened because of COVID, the COVID restrictions and so forth. It's also an election year. Public administrator had to run in the primary and so on, right? Well, I found out that the public administrator, my friend, was having issues at work. He had a lot of problems with his staff. He came in. They thought he was going to come in and make things better. Well, a lot of them thought he made things worse. He was running an inefficient office. He was causing lots of problems. He was moving people around that they were used to doing one job. He put them in different jobs. He was being accused of carrying on an inappropriate relationship with someone there and so on.
Wow.
And a fellow that you may know, a reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal since we were kids in the 1980s, Mr. Gehrman. My dad would read from the dining room table stories from the Review-Journal, the RJ, written by Jeff German. This guy took down the mafia in the 90s, wrote stories. He was an investigative journalist, right? Clark
Wow.
Kent, right? Anyway, he started writing stories to RJ about this public administrator. And it cost this public administrator his primary election.
Wow.
And then he was going to write more stories. And he wound up stabbed to death 7 times right next to his house. Right?
This
And
is
the public
recent news, yes.
And the public administrator has been in jail now. He just yesterday lost his job. There was a court hearing that said because he had his job until the beginning of next year, right?
Wow.
Until January, because then the new public administrator takes over after the general election in January. Well, he lost his job yesterday because the judge said, well, you can't perform your duties while you're sitting in jail, and you're in jail without bond because we think you're a flight risk. You already tried to commit suicide, we think. We're not letting you out. And he's like, well, but I have phone access and internet access. I can still do my duties from jail because I have those things. And then the judge held up a piece of paper. Yeah, but you filed that you needed a free attorney. You need a public defender because you anticipated losing your job because of all of this. So needless to say, he just lost his job yesterday.
Wow.
So we are currently without a public administrator.
The Wild West. Welcome to
Because
Vegas.
the general election isn't until November.
Yeah.
There's going to be an acting public administrator. Actually, there has been one
yeah.
now because he's been in jail. But so these are some of the folks, and I'm talking about a public administrator who's elected, right? But then probate judges
Yeah.
there could be issues there. We've had plenty of scandals and stuff over the years. Do you really want to trust overworked bureaucrats with your estate? Now, if Jed had simply done a simple estate plan, a will, he could have done a trust too, even though he didn't really own real estate, but he could have done a trust listing everything and listing one of his sons or me or somebody as a successor trustee. We could have gone in there, found out where all his assets are, find out who his creditors are. We wouldn't have had to have the public administrator's office try to go in and totally ransack the place and delay everything for a year and a half. We
Right.
wouldn't have to rely on him at all. Me or somebody else that he named could have found his document, or the public administrator could have found his documents and said, hey, you're the successor trustee, or you're the executor or executrix. Have at it.
Yeah.
He didn't do that, and he could have done it. And he
Yeah.
could have saved a ton of work. Because I had to go through, after the public administrator's office ransacked his place, and he had a lot of stuff in there, I had to go in with my crew, go through all of his things and look for anything valuable that he might have, store it and save it. His sons are actually going to come out at the end of the month, finally, after all this time, to see the stuff that I've collected on his behalf and
Wow.
decide what they want to take pictures, picture albums, and so forth.
Yeah.
So it's a Halloween month. This is a scary story. It's ongoing. You have murder, you have death, and I think that estate planning prevents some of the horror and some of the terror and some of the sadness and everything. If you plan for your death, your heirs don't have to come when they're in a sad state of mind, go through all your things, try to figure out what you wanted. They don't have to do any of that. They don't have to go and hire high-priced lawyers, go to court. You have,
Argue. Yeah.
you have a set of instructions right there for anybody to read. You've made it so simple. If you love your loved ones, your so-called loved one, you really love them, you're going to spend maybe $1,000, get at least something done.
And you do pet trust as well.
Yeah, I haven't had to do them yet, but I want to do them. Pet trusts are great for people that have a lot of animals, maybe horses.
Even dogs.
Dogs too, but the idea is you set aside a little bit of money for your successor trustee to then, and the successor trustee doesn't have to be the person that's actually taking care of the animals. They're in charge of giving the money out to the person who's taking care of the animals. So you set aside a few thousand or whatever for vet bills, food, things like that. And then your successor trustee makes sure that the animal's taken care of.
That's very important. And
Yep.
there's people out there where their pets are their children. And that is, it's very important to them that their pets are taken care of.
So you find a neighbor or somebody who'll take care of it, and just to ensure that they will, you put some money aside.
Yeah, that's a great.
Anthony, I think you did a very good job at steering everybody into running to get a trust to make sure that they are taking care of their loved ones and not going through all of the bureaucracy that comes after such a tragic happening.
I thought I should wear Dracula fangs, but I'm actually the vampire slayer. I'm not the vampire. The vampires are the bureaucrats that you want to avoid.
This is true. This is true. You know, when I did, I got a probate certification a couple years ago, and when I did the certification, they had told us that 85% of Americans do not have their real estate in a trust, which is insane. Something so simple, so easy. $1,000, if you own real estate, $1,000 is nothing to make sure that you are ensuring that this gets handled properly in the event that you are no longer here. So it is very important. I think everybody that owns any type of real estate, it has to have a trust.
So everybody's going to call you now, Anthony.
Yes.
One other thing to consider, another reason I'm getting into this field, the largest transfer of wealth in world history is taking place, has been taking place over the last few years, and is taking place as
Yes.
the baby boomer generation, which is the richest generation ever, who owns everything, is dying.
Yeah.
Okay? And how much does that baby boom generation just want to give to the government? And how much do they want to give to their heirs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you're dealing with probate, you're paying, you're giving part of your estate to somebody else. Your heirs are not getting it all.
Yeah.
And it's the fees can be, I know they can get pretty costly, but I know average probate fees are between 20 to 30% of the estate. When you add up everything that it costs the estate to go through probate, and that's huge.
And some
That's
probate
huge.
lawyers work on contingency.
Yeah,
So they get a percentage of the estate when the estate settles.
yeah.
You don't want to pay it. You have a $100,000 house, you don't want to give $30,000 of it away to the lawyer
Yeah.
to do a probate.
And I've seen that happen so many times where, and you don't have an option. You can't say, no, I don't want to do probate. You have no option in that case.
Yeah, if you didn't leave instructions, then it's up to the system.
One thing I can say is contracts are negotiable. So if you are unfortunately dealing with a deceased loved one's estate, and you need a probate lawyer, don't get bullied by a probate lawyer into signing an agreement. Read it, maybe go talk to some other probate lawyers and find out something. Get one that's not going to take a huge chunk of your estate.
Yeah, that is very important. And yes, contracts are negotiable and everything, real estate
All
as
of it.
well.
We do it all the time.
So we definitely could have made this a lot longer show, but we are at the end of our time here. So if somebody needs to contact you, they have to get this trust built. Guys, if you don't have a trust, do it. Please,
Get the trust.
Please do it.
Absolutely get the trust.
Please do it. And you're going to save me time and headache when you call me to list your home, because we will have all the paperwork in place.
Yeah, and
Instructions.
you'll be working with the successor trustee.
Yes.
You won't have to deal with the probate court too.
Yes, absolutely. However, either way, we can help you. But Anthony, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to my website, law@twlo.law. TWLO stands for the Right Law Offices. My phone number on the screen is 725-529-8956. I have a little mnemonic for that. Lawyer Anthony Wright, PAL. People are liking Lawyer Anthony Wright, the Right Law Offices. If you want to remember, it's PAL, LAWTWLO is the number. I also have a website, rightlawNV.com, which is on the screen. The best ways to reach, or you can just Google me, Anthony Wright, lawyer, Las Vegas. There's all kinds of stuff about me up
Yep. And you can call me. I have Anthony's number programmed into my phone, so I do know how to get a hold of him. If you call me, 702-308-2878, can certainly help you if you are selling a home in a trust. Even if you do, unfortunately, have to go to probate, I am probate certified, could help you with that transaction.
If you come through Trish, I do offer a little discount for my services.
Yes, and I do have that those resources at my desk. Yes, and Tiana, how do people get a hold of you?
Same, 702-379-9948. Hasn't changed in a decade, won't change for another decade, so call me.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you're watching our show, like, comment, share, download, tell your friends about us, and keep on watching. Keep on telling people we're offering real estate news every week with the market changing. You guys really need to stay in tune. Keep tuning in to see what's happening here. I will see you guys next week.
Bye, guys. Have a great week.
Bye.